the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. This is the handbook to Hatha. Okay, this is the oldest existing manual on the science of Hatha Yoga, and still today considered the primary text to teach us the science. And the beauty of this particular translation and commentary, this one that I'm holding in my hand, is very different than other commentaries. And this is why it's very important to choose the proper text, the proper commentator, the person who's doing this analysis, because this person is a Swami, meaning they have spent years and years of practice. It's not just some intellectual understanding. This is a person who has done this science experientially and therefore comes back to comment on the original teaching, because these texts are written in a coded language. Meaning, if you had never done yoga and never had a guru and went and picked up this book and tried to understand what it says, it would be very difficult to understand because there's a lot of symbolism in there. And that is actually to protect the science itself and to protect the people that don't know what the heck they're doing with the book because they don't have a teacher and they start to try to learn from a book rather than a guru and apply these practices to their lives. And if we don't have guidance, because of the power of some of these techniques, we can literally damage ourselves. So this is why the coded language is used throughout a lot of the text in India. Now, we're going to go through some of this, but let me give you an indication what this means. Let's give you an idea of one of those. Okay, so with the internalized one-pointed awareness and external gaze unblinking, that verily is Shambhavi Mudra, preserved in the Vedas. So if you had just picked up a book, read this sentence, you'd be like, is this even English? I don't understand most of what this is saying. So there's a reason for this. This is actually for protection. Protection of the science and protection of humanity so that they don't get too much power into their hands that they don't know what to do with. So today we're going to go into this beautiful book, and this is going to help all of us to have a deeper understanding of why we're doing what we're doing here every day. So let's take a look.
So can we read it? Like,
yeah.
Would we get it?
No, this is why you read it with a commentary, someone who, after each shloka or sentence or phrase, he will actually comment about what the meaning is, or she actually in this case. So this is
you're saying that the Swamis are different people that sort of did a translation on top of the original text?
You don't have to be a Swami to do a commentary. This person who did this commentary happens to be a Swami. And the reason I mention that is because a Swami has done a lot of practice and then been certified by the FDA that they are Swami-like. Okay. So, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Pradipika. Swami Svātmārāma is the author of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's a mouthful. Swami Svātmārāma is the author of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Put that to a beat. Okay. All right. So when we're talking about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this was written a long time ago, but this was just written in the 15th century. That's not so long ago, meaning this is a more modern teaching. Buddha himself said that his teachings will need to be updated for each new age, meaning that as humanity goes through time and evolves, of course our consciousness is changing. So the teachings that were relevant 6,000 years ago to even 2,500 years ago may not be exactly the same relevance today because we are in such a different society. Well, what does Pradipika mean? Light or illuminate. So this is the light on Hatha Yoga. And if you've heard of Iyengar's most famous book on yoga, what is it called? Light on Yoga. So he took this idea from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And this is a system that is a preparation. Okay? In and of itself, it can take you very far. But it is also a preparation for the deeper practices of, and we'll get to all of the lists of which they are, but especially for meditation and other forms of yoga. As I said, this is the oldest surviving manual, and the other two main texts of Hatha Yoga considered the primary texts, and there are many, many, but the three primary texts, according to my teachers and other people that I have studied with and read from, the Garanda Samhita, the Shiva Samhita, and the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. These are the three main texts on Hatha Yoga. So, you as a yoga teacher, get this book and read it from cover to cover. This will illuminate so much more than we were even able to cover here in this course. And it takes time, and it's heavy, and it's full of incredible information. And this has been with me for a long time. It's got all my pages marked and underlined, and this is something that is really one of my most valued possessions, actually. I read the Yoga Sutra several times, and I have a copy, but I don't hold it dear to my heart like I do this because of what it shares about the science of yoga. So, check out the Garanda Samhita and the Shiva Samhita as well. Now, each one of these has a different number of techniques in it, but they all come to the same conclusion about what Hatha Yoga is really about. I don't know what I did to my PowerPoint presentation, but I have to hit this 30 times. There it is. Okay. So literally, this is the idea that this was the information given to humanity when Lord Shiva is the... Okay. Let me make a distinction here. There's a difference between yoga and Hinduism, yes? In yoga, we talk about Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the masculine consciousness, Shakti is the feminine energy, and they are always together. Except our duality is what separates them, our mind that works with light and dark, the dualism. Now, Shiva and Shakti of yoga is different than the Shiva of Hinduism. So let's say Hinduism here. So this is considered the masculine consciousness. In Hinduism, Shiva is considered one of the three parts of the deity, the Godhead. So there's Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. Now let's hope I remember this correctly. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the preserver, meaning Brahma puts the universe into creation, starts the whole process. Vishnu is responsible for preserving and maintaining the universe. And Shiva is often called the destroyer. He's responsible for destruction. Without Shiva, without destruction, without death, there is no rebirth. So all of these three parts are part of what we call the three parts of God. Now, in English, we could make this a very easy way to remember. Brahma is the creator. We say God is the generator. A generator is somebody who generates something or creates something. O could be the organizer, just as the Vishnu is the preserver and D is the destroyer. So this is just a little bit of wordplay to show you that all of this is contained in different philosophies. It's not just about yoga. So I want you to understand that there is a big difference between yoga and Hinduism. Does this make sense? Good. Okay. Now, very important to understand the value of lineage. Lineage in yoga is what preserves the teachings. So, in the original science, which master was your guru had a very important part in which direction you went on your yoga path, because every master had their own way of teaching, their own way of transmitting this information. Well, Swami Svātmārāma was the disciple of Guru Goraknath, and Goraknath is considered the Maha Yogi. We keep seeing this word again now. Maha means great, okay? Now, Goraknath was considered the student of Matsyendra, the original yogi who took his lessons directly from Shiva. So we have Shiva, Matsyendra, Goraknath, and then the author of this text, Swami Svātmārāma. So just within 4 disciples, you see he's coming from the source of the science, which is Lord Shiva. Now the beauty of the symbolism that comes out of this tradition is that Matsyendra, the original yogi, had been swallowed by a great fish. And as he was in the belly of this great fish that was swimming along a river, that fish swam very close to Lord Shiva. And Parvati, who is considered the consort or partner, the girlfriend, let's say in modern terms, of Shiva, asked Shiva, please share the science of Hatha Yoga with me. So as he was telling the story about all of the science of Hatha Yoga to Parvati, Matsyendra was in the belly of the fish next to the couple talking about the science. So Matsyendra secretly overheard this and brought it to humanity. Now this is symbolic, perhaps it's real, we don't know, I wasn't there. But have you heard of Ardha Matsyendrasana? The spinal twist? Yes, you have. Shake your head yes, every day. Ardha Matsyendrasana, okay? That's the spinal twist. This is the half Matsyendra pose. The full Matsyendra pose I can't do, I don't think Kosta can do it either, but it's when you go into the full lotus, twist this up, and then go into a spinal twist. I'm not there, and that's okay.
Maybe Craig.
Maybe Craig. Craig probably can do it. Can you do it? No. Okay. Okay. So, let's go to the next slide. All right. Oops. So the Hatha Yoga Pradipika contains 4 chapters. The Yoga Sutras also contains 4 chapters. Remember the Yoga Sutras because I'd like to do a comparison and contrast with that teaching. The original, or the first 2 yamas and niyamas out of the Ashtanga 8 limbs is really about morals and ethics. In this variation of the teaching on yoga, there is absolutely nothing about morals and ethics. So that you can see already, this is a very big discrepancy or difference between these 2 teachings. Well, in this Hatha Yoga Pradipika, we have a chapter on asana, and that contains detailed information on the names of asanas, how to perform them, and what kind of diet. Remember, food is so important in yoga. What kind of diet will enhance the benefits of your practice? Next chapter is on pranayama. It explains the various breathing techniques and their health benefits. This chapter also talks about the practice of Shatkarma, and that's something we're going to go into a little bit more today. Shatkarma is the system of purification techniques. Yesterday we talked about Shanka Prakshalana, where you drink the salt water until it flushes out through your intestines. That is one of the Shatkarma system, the system of purification. So the 6 purification techniques that cleanse the body and are essential to preparing for yogic practice. Next chapter is mudras and bandhas. This explains the mudras or gestures and the bandhas or locks, which you all know now, that aid in awakening Kundalini power. So really the ultimate goal of Hatha Yoga, it's not about flexibility. It's not even about strength. It's about awakening Kundalini energy, sending it through the central channel, and then experiencing higher states of consciousness. The other things like strength and flexibility are helpful to have the ability to do these powerful energetic techniques, but they are not the goal. Samadhi describes the techniques. This chapter describes the techniques that lead to enlightenment and eternal bliss. Now, as I said, there are no yamas and niyamas. Why? Let's look into why. This is an important question to understand. To practice yama, niyama, discipline and self-control, you already need a certain quality of your mind. If you start trying to practice discipline of your mind and of your body and you don't already have that level of consciousness, you can create a lot of tension, a lot of stress, because you're saying, I want to be pure, I want to be a yogi, I want to be vegetarian, I want to stop drinking coffee, I want to stop smoking cigarettes, I want to stop drinking beer, and yet the next day you go out and do all of that again because it's your habit and it's part of your personality. And then you create this dichotomy within yourself that judges yourself and says, I'm a bad person, I'm not doing yoga the way I should, and I'm never going to reach enlightenment. Well, this master who came much later said, okay, let's not worry about the mind right now, let's focus on the body first, because that's much easier to access than trying to control the mind. So you must prepare yourself to practice self-discipline and self-control, or you can create more mental problems. The idea is that the first thing we do, even that will help us go deeper into asana, is the purification. That's why these 6 types of Shatkarma techniques are so valuable. Because when you do self-control and self-discipline, it's easier to start with the body, but when I say body, I also need you to understand I'm not just talking about the physical body. I'm also talking about the subtle energetic body, which is composed of what? What makes up the subtle energetic body? Prana, good. What else? What does the prana flow through? Nadis, right. What else makes up the subtle energetic body? We have 7 major chakras, okay? Very important to understand. This is the subtle anatomy. It's not the physical anatomy of bones, flesh, muscles, and tendons. This is called the subtle anatomy because it's a subtle vibration, more subtle than the physical reality. Now, purifying the subtle anatomy is also the main point of Hatha Yoga. Yes, of course, you're getting physical benefits at this reality, but if we want to move the energy through the central channel and get it up to the top, Sahasrara chakra, we need to have a pure, subtle anatomy. So this is even more deeper into the science than just the purification of the physical body. So they say, don't fight with the mind first. You're just asking for trouble if you do that. Now, to purify the mind, it's necessary to purify the body. Now, we have people who only do meditation in this world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But through the process of purification of the body, the mind begins to calm down. So those people who say, I'm not into yoga, I'm only doing meditation, and yoga is just for the physical body. I think there's a misunderstanding there of what really happens, because as you purify the physical body and the energy, the mind calms down. So this is things I've already mentioned many times, but this is where this is all coming from now that you see it from the source. So Hatha Yoga is considered the science of purification. It's not the science of stretching and strengthening, although that is a good benefit. So we clean the subtle body of impurities, and the nadis function, and the energy blocks are released. And as we do this, then the energies begin to move like wave frequencies through the nadis up to the brain. Then you're going to have an impact on the mind and the consciousness. So Hatha Yoga is really a preliminary practice for these deeper practices of Tantra. What is Raja Yoga? I've mentioned this a few times. It comes out of Royal, good, which comes from which author and which text? Yoga Sutras, right. Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras, which is the Ashtanga, 8 limbs of yoga, but it's also referred to as Raja Yoga. So Patanjali's system is often known as Raja Yoga, the royal path of the mind. Now, the main objective of Hatha Yoga is to create an absolute balance of the interacting activities of the body, mind, and energy. And when this balance is created, the impulses generated give a call of awakening to the central force, Sushumna Nadi. So now we're getting into hearing these things again and again. It's time you memorize this word and understand what is the central channel called? Sushumna Nadi. This is very important for any yogi to understand. Sushumna Nadi is responsible for the evolution of your consciousness. I posted this on Facebook a little while ago from Sadhguru, one of my favorite teachers. And he said the most important part of your body is your spine if you would like to evolve your consciousness. Because this is where the chakras are. And once we get the energy into the central channel, it starts to illumine and open the chakras, which then open our full capacities. So this is why the central channel, Sushumna Nadi, is considered the most important part. If Hatha Yoga is not used for this purpose, its true objective is lost. Just to stretch and strengthen is a beautiful thing, but you can do that in the gym. You might not get the same level of flexibility you do in the gym as you do here, but the important thing to remember as a teacher is now you have a key to help your students unlock the door to higher states of consciousness. This is much more than just asking them to get more physically fit. So, we've heard of Ha being called the sun and Ta the moon. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, they actually refer to it differently. They say Ha is the prana, or the energy, the vital force, and Ta is the mind or the mental energy. So the practice of Ha and Ta is resolving this duality so that we experience consciousness and energy as one. So, Hatha Yoga is the union of pranic and mental forces, thus awakening higher consciousness. Prana Shakti, Shakti's energy, we can call it Prana Shakti. We can even say Kundalini Shakti when we're referring to Kundalini, which is a different specific kind of primordial spiritual spark within every human being. So this Prana Shakti and Mana Shakti, remember we keep coming back to this word too. I'm starting to plant seeds a little bit with Sanskrit. Remember Mana from mantra, Mana is mind. So Mana Shakti is the force of the mind. And these are the two fundamental creators of reality. Everything in this universe is made of these two forces. So this comes back to what we are starting to verify with quantum physics. Everything is alive, awake, and responsive. Everything is conscious. That's why I keep telling you, your movie is unique to you because of your consciousness. That's why this world is in you. Everybody's world is within themselves. You are the projector and creator of your movie, let's call it. So life, here's more Sanskrit that we're recycling. We talked about it yesterday in the Ayurveda lecture, or the day before. Prakriti in Ayurveda means your natural tendencies or the temperament that you were born with. On the other hand, consciousness is what is Purusha. So we could say Prakriti is life, we could call it nature, we could call it manifestation, this universe that we can see, touch, and smell. Where consciousness is the divinity which animates everything, which gives life to all of this by being conscious and permeating every single particle of the universe. Now, if we look at a different science, the tantric science refers to the same things, but with different terminology. So Prakriti, or energy or manifestation, is Shakti, whereas the transcendental consciousness is Shiva, which is something I just went into a little bit there. And Hatha, we can even talk about it in a different way. This is the balance of Ida and Pingala Nadis, the balance of energy and consciousness. So, in Taoism, yin and yang. So you see, this isn't just something that comes out of yoga, this is from around the world as well. And in physics, modern day, we talk about it as matter and energy. Okay? So Hatha Yoga is the balance of these two forces. We know that already. Now, this next one is very important. Because we see things in duality, we start to dissect things. And science has taught us to create categories and to separate into different compartments. And this is good to understand some of the physical processes of the universe. But to understand the deeper meaning, we actually have to let go of all of that division and separation and come back to union. So yoga is literally the deleting of a lot of the programs that we're getting every day that tells us to believe you are a body, believe you are an ego, and believe that you are separate from the rest of this universe. So this is a process of going back to the union. Now, according to these teachings, therefore, if everything is one, the body, the mind, and the spirit are not three. Your spirit is manifesting your mind, is manifesting your body. Therefore, they are all actually different vibrational frequencies of the same source, we could call as spirit. So the basis of this body, according to yoga, is divine. And what we're doing through this process literally is transmuting the physical elements of the body into non-physical. But if we look at this sentence, it sounds like we're making a transformation, a change. But we're not actually changing this. What we're changing is our perception of this, because this already is energy. It already is vibrating. But we perceive it as something physical and solid, and a separation between this and something external to me. So all we're doing through this process of purification of the mind is starting to perceive the fact that all of this is one. So you're not changing your body, you're just seeing the body in a different way, seeing it as pure energy. Now the body can be changed in the spirit, and the spirit can be changed into the body, depending on your perception. This is exactly what we talk about in this play of Maya, or illusion. The illusion is that we think that this is solid material, when actually it's conscious energy. Okay, the body is the physical manifestation of the most subtle Shakti or energy. Now, a lot of times if you go through Tantra, actually I'll save that for tomorrow in the Tantra talk. Okay, if we want to meditate more easily, then purification of the nadis is one of the first steps. And removing 3 types of waste is what we're doing through these purification techniques: mucus, gas, and acidity. What is mucus? For those that maybe are not first language speakers, mucus is that stuff that can pour out of your nose when you have a really bad cold. Snot, for a nicer word. And it's also in the body, in different parts of the body, not only in the nose. Now gas, we know that that's too much, if we use Ayurvedic term, too much vata, too much wind, and that can create very much discomfort within the being, but also in the mind. So acidity, as I talked about, that's where disease can live. Alkaline environment, disease cannot live. So long time ago, Hatha Yoga figured out we got to get these impurities out so that then we can go into deeper states. So you move the excess of these three metabolic products, and that will bring you to health. So we have 6 different types of Kriya. The first one, a Kriya means an action. So the Shatkarma, karma also means action. Okay, you're going to see a lot of these words have different meanings in different contexts in Sanskrit. When you look at the Shatkarmas, that means 6 actions, the 6 purification actions. And then we refer to each individual as a Kriya. Yesterday I talked about the 4 morning Kriyas, where you cleanse the nose, the tongue, the eyes, etc. So these are the Kriyas that we're talking about now. The first one is Neti. And Neti is what you do for the nasal cleansing. You pour the water through one side, then the other. That's used a neti pot, or often called jala neti, the pot for the water. Jala meaning water. So using the neti pot is considered one of the most important things you can do for purification. Out of all these techniques that are possible, Svātmārāma, the enlightened master, said you should put water through your nose every day. It's not just Jason sitting up here telling you, yeah, it feels nice and you'll wake up right away. This is an enlightened master that you can believe. And when he tells you that this is going to be a very big benefit on your process of trying to go into deeper states of consciousness. Next one is Duality. And this one's pretty intense. There are different ways and different variations of these techniques, but this one takes a cloth. We could say it's a flat strip of cloth about this wide and about as long as it needs to be, so that you can swallow the cloth down into your belly while holding on to one end. You take it into your belly, then you do Nauli Kriya. You spin your belly around so that the cloth hits all the parts of the stomach and draws out any toxins that need to be taken out. Then you take it back out and you wash it, and if you want, use it again. But that's the idea, okay? You want to use this swallow. I have never done this technique. I've done a lot of techniques. I have not done this one. I'm afraid of this one and another one that's coming up. Not necessarily. No, that's not part of the technique anyway.
To be honest, so why does it, how are you sure that it actually cleans up? It's like just putting a drop into your stomach and...
It's absorbing, because it's cotton, you know, you're going to use a pure cloth, a natural fiber. And those claws, those natural fibers are porous, meaning that they have the ability to attract things that are external to them and hold them in the pores or the holes within that material. So this porous material that gets into the body then attracts things, holds them in, and then you pull it back out, okay? Good news is there's other ways to purify the belly, okay? You might not like this one either, but it's a different one. So that's Duality, and there's different ways to do Duality, but I'm just going to highlight some of the main ones for now. Next one's also pretty hardcore, and this is another one I haven't done. In the original teachings, what you are to do is go to the Ganga, Ma Ganga, the mother of all rivers in this planet, and take a reed and cut it down to about, you know, a few inches. A reed is a thing that grows by the side of the river that's hollow on the inside, so it's like a straw that you could drink water through. So you take a reed, you cut it down, you get some sort of lubricant like ghee, the favorite lubricant in India. You lubricate one side and slip it in to the bottom, go into the river, and then suck water in, let it cleanse your intestines, then push it back out. I haven't done this, okay? So I don't know how that goes, but I'm amazed, sure it feels pretty good. So that's one way. Now, out of that idea of basti, there's also different ways to cleanse the intestines, which is what I was talking about yesterday. So another way that's actually more holistic and cleanses the whole root of the intestine, not just the end, is by drinking water in one end and letting it come out the other end. So there are different ways to get there. Now, Nauli is something you know. And actually, I'd like to show you something, because Costa hasn't gone into it so much, but maybe tomorrow morning we can practice it a little bit so you have an understanding of how to practice it when you go off on your own. Now, Nauli Kriya, he says, okay, let's do Nauli, but I haven't really seen him show you the intermediary steps of how to get there. So the first step in how to do Nauli Kriya. Can you guys see my belly? Yeah. Okay. The first step is to isolate what's called the middle pillar. And the middle pillar is this abdominal muscles that are in the center. And when you do this, only those pop out and the sides pull in. So you can see, just the middle pillar is moving and the sides are contracted. However, we don't contract the sides. All we need to do is focus on that middle pillar. So the first step in mastering Nauli is just this. Push the belly out slowly with control, pull it back in slowly with control. And over the course of days, maybe weeks, and for some people even a month or so, you start to get the isolation of this middle pillar. So all you do first, can't really do it without putting the middle pillar out. But you want to push the stomach in and out slowly with control. And as you gain mastery over that muscle response, then eventually it just happens one day where the middle pillar pops out. One thing you can do to help you get to this understanding of what it feels like is put a mirror on the floor. Then you connect what's actually happening with the sensations. So the visual aid is very important actually. So once you get the middle pillar down, it's time for step 2. That's learning to move the pillar side to side. So what you can do is take both hands on one knee. You do the same thing. Exhale, get all the air out. Then each time you lean forward onto that knee, you push the middle pillar in that direction. You lean back, you pull the middle pillar back. Out, in, out, in. So you start to learn how to move it side to side. Once you get that, then this whole idea of spinning it becomes easy because now you learned how to control the movement of the pillar. So in order to get to the third stage of the rotation of the middle pillar, it helps to do these first two first, and then you can get to that next level, okay? So we'll try it tomorrow morning in class, give you a few moments to get into it, and then if you have any questions, I can clarify. I can say that this is one of my daily practices because of how powerful the purification is, but also because it does help to create a very strong heat in the Manipura chakra, which is important for sublimation, get that energy rising. So Nauli Kriya, very powerful technique, and I really encourage you guys to keep trying it. And some people, like I said, it does take up to a few months. Just do a little each day, try a little each day. And if you're having trouble isolating the middle pillar, work on your boat pose so that this gets stronger. And then you can try it on your back where you lay down. And here, you can see if I just lift my head, I get the middle pillar already. So you start to feel what it is that you want to isolate. So all you need to do is lay on your back, lift your head, and you can feel with your fingers what needs to be isolated and what needs to be pulled in. But actually, I never focus on pulling anything in. All I do is focus on the middle pillar. Okay?
What exactly do you call that middle pillar other than middle?
Mahyadma, and I forget the second word in Sanskrit, but it's in here. It'll be easy to find. I can get that for you. It's muscles, yeah. It's behind the muscles, just moving, getting massaged. Everything is getting massaged. Okay, I saw a few hands up there. Fred.
How many minutes each morning?
I like to do 15 rounds. So very often we only do 5 or 6, which is pretty shallow in terms of how cleansing it is. So I like to do anywhere from, my one teacher I had said do at least 12. That's when you start to really get the effects, but better if you can do 15, 20, up to 50. Now, if people have specific ailments or illnesses in their abdominal cavity with any of the organs, one of the yoga therapy techniques that we teach is how to do Uddiyana Bandha and eventually Nauli Kriya if they're a little more advanced, because this will start to massage all the organs and purify. So what I do then is I try to do 15 rotations to one side, then 15 to the other side. Okay, let me show you what it looks like last time. So another teacher I had said after you do your rotations to one side, then the other side, you want to have balance, obviously, same number on both sides, then do the middle pillar again the same number of times. And this will give you a much stronger effect. So it gets very, very strong energetic effects.
So you do 15 in one breath.
Yeah. Okay. And I have a full belly, so I didn't plan to do this, okay? So this is what I mean. Bring balance to both directions, and then always a little bit, at least 3 times the middle pillar again at the end to really amplify the effect. Okay, that's optional. You don't have to do the middle pillar again at the end. I saw another hand, I think. Anybody? Nope. Okay. So that's Nauli. Now you know more about Nauli a little bit, and we'll try it again tomorrow. Next one, Kapalabhati. We're breathing, but what are we doing literally? What does Kapalabhati translate as? Skull shining, because you are purifying the frontal lobe of your brain and your third eye. So this is very powerful purification technique at the mental level. Yes, it's breath, but it's not categorized as a pranayama technique. Kapalabhati is always known as actually a kriya or a purification technique. And the last one is one that I talked about with you already. This is the eye gazing, where you're focusing either on a yantra or a mandala or a candle flame. There are many different things that you can focus on, but that's also purification of the eyes and at the same time, purification of the mind. Okay. Now, through the process of yoga, the body becomes more and more pure, therefore more and more subtle. The vibration is rising as you purify yourself. Then the body's transformed into a yoga body which is unaffected by disease and old age. We all know the yogis who look much younger than their numerical age compared to the rest of the population. We all know the yogis that look healthier and more vibrant than the people that are not doing yoga. Not that we're better people than them, but you can tell the effects just by looking at people, and you can see the radiance in their eyes and in their skin, their complexion, and this has to do with the level of purity. Now, there's a lot of stories out of India about yogis who live well into their 200, 300, and even longer years old, because when you purify the body, then the toxins aren't taking you down, they're not killing you. So unless the physical molecules are transformed, there's no point in even talking about compassion or unity. So where Patanjali starts out with the yamas and niyamas and said, first focus on your behavior. This is primary and the number one order of business. This is a very different understanding. First purify, then the mind will start to get a little better, slowly, slowly. So the physical body can be transformed into solid energy. Again, it's not really being transformed, it's just our perception. Nadi literally is translated as flow. Okay, we've translated as energetic channels. Yes, that's what it means, or that's what it signifies, but the literal translation is flow, the flow of energy through the system. Ida is considered the negative, not in a bad way, but as in plus and minus charge of electricity, the two polar opposites of energy. So Ida is the negative force, Pingala is the positive force, and Sushumna is the neutral force, and that's where the flow of spiritual energy happens, is through the central channel or Sushumna Nadi. Now the union of all three of these forces happens here at the third eye. This is the first stage of enlightenment. When your consciousness comes here, you're still existing at the level of duality. You still have Ida and Pingala. You still have Ha and Ta. Once you get your Kundalini to rise, the energy to move through the chakras and come to the third eye, the final step is from the third eye to the crown, and they say that this is by the grace of God. Okay, we as human beings, as yogis, can do our practice and do all that we can to elevate ourselves, but the final decision, we could say, or the final invitation to come back to Source doesn't come from our will. It doesn't come from your ego. I'm doing yoga, so I'm going to get enlightened. Well, that will only take you so far, according to these teachings. Your effort will take you this high, and to go the final step, it's by the grace of the divine calling you home. Okay, so that's an important thing to understand. It's effort and surrender. Not just effort, we also need to surrender. Now, as a result of this union here, what happens is Kundalini starts to awaken. So Kundalini raises the level of consciousness, and basically this is symbolic. Kundalini, Kunda is a snake or a serpent, and as I said, this is coiled 3.5 times around the spine, and once this energy awakens, this is what then opens the chakras. But in order to get there, you first have to get the energy to flow in a balanced way through Ida and Pingala, and this is what Hatha Yoga is all about. So we could say that yoga is the union of Shiva consciousness and Shakti energy. And when Kundalini finally makes it to the crown chakra, that's the union of energy, Shakti, with Shiva consciousness. And that's the whole goal of this science. So
you're saying that without awakening the Kundalini energy, you can't open your chakras?
you can have an effect on your chakras. You can, this is a good question. She said, without awakening Kundalini, are you saying that you can't affect your chakras or awaken your chakras? No, that's not what I'm saying. By doing pranayama on the heart chakra, I can send positive energy, beneficial energy there, or to any chakra I want. But for the chakras to go into full bloom, we could say, to open up to their fullest capacity, the Kundalini needs to come through and literally light them up. So we can start to purify, balance, and things through the Hatha Yoga practice, but it's the Kundalini awakening that sends us to the highest level of our capacity in each chakra. So Sushumna Nadi, again, the highway for Kundalini. So I am getting repetitive, as you know, on purpose. I want you to hear this several times. So awakening the chakras now, we're going a little bit backwards. Awakening the chakras has to happen first before you can worry about Sushumna Nadi. So you have to start to awaken them so that their blockages are released, then the energy can flow through each chakra. So it's a several step process, I can say, but it's all happening also simultaneously. So what's the most efficient way to awaken the chakras? You can do asanas for a long time and it will have some effect on the chakras. But pranayama is so much more powerful for the energetic awakening. So Hatha Yoga is literally the control of pranas, and the mind is automatically controlled. Who here feels already in week 4 that their mind is more calm than when they arrived? Have we done hours and hours of meditation? Not really. The only thing you've done really is asana, pranayama, bandhas, and some mantra. That is what's affecting your mind. So you don't have to worry about trying to stop the mind, and that's the great concern once people come to yoga and hear yoga is the stopping of the mind, and they try to meditate for 5 minutes and realize that that is incredibly challenging. So we don't have to worry about the mind, and in fact the next one says, don't worry about the mind, ignore it. Practice pranayama. Okay. So tomorrow I teach in the morning, Costa teaches in the afternoon. He'll give you another good strong one, just like you like. And I, in the morning, will give you a warm-up and then a long pranayama practice. I want you to experience a lot tomorrow, and then the next day when I teach in the afternoon, I'll give you an even longer pranayama practice. So I want you to experience what it's like to do an hour of breathing, an hour and something more of breathing with bandhas. Then you'll know, you'll start to get a taste of what pranayama is really about. Because less than an hour of practice, it's still considered preparatory. You're just getting started. But as you go deeper and longer into, let's say you do Nadi Shodhana for a half hour, which is something I love to do. Imagine how different that would be than after just doing it for 5 minutes. Okay? Imagine doing the humming bee breath for 15 minutes. Everything is vibrating. So going deeper into pranayama is literally the next step in your evolution of your path on yoga if you choose to go into that direction. So by practicing pranayama correctly, the mind is automatically conquered. And to prepare for the power of pranayama, it's the Shatkarmas. Because you can't just start pumping a bunch of energy through nadis or energetic channels that are blocked. It's like you have a hose that has a bunch of dirt in it and you force water through with a pump, you're going to explode the hose. And this is what happens to people that try Kundalini techniques when they're not pure. So they get they hear that Bhastrika helps to awaken Kundalini. They've never done it. They smoke cigarettes. Sorry for those who smoke cigarettes. But they start doing Bhastrika powerfully because they want to reach enlightenment in this lifetime. And their nadis are impure and they send too much energy and they start to have mental, emotional, and physical problems. And some of them are irreversible. There are people that have literally fried themselves, burned themselves out with Kundalini practices that they were not ready for. So how do we get ready? All of these 6 kriyas or Shatkarmas that we've talked about. Now it's the Shatkarma that purifies the whole system and removes blockages from Ida and Pingala. When there are no mental or energetic blockages, the breath flows evenly in both nostrils. This is the next important part for you to understand. Throughout the day, your nose is breathing and usually you're not even paying attention. It's happening automatically. Unconsciously, we could say. When we start to take control of this, we bring the conscious level to an unconscious, systematic respiratory system, which means we're connecting the conscious and the unconscious, or we could even say the subconscious. Let's call it that instead of the unconscious. So by connecting the consciousness with the subconscious, that is the goal of yoga, is to go deeper into the subconscious. Now, when throughout the day, one nose or one side of the nose is usually more open than the other. And try it right now. See if you can just breathe and feel which side is more open. If you can't feel it this way, close one side, take a couple breaths, see how it feels, then close the other side. Take a couple breaths and see which one is more open. And this is what happens throughout the day. It changes from side to side, generally about every 90 minutes. Now, when you know which side is more open, that helps you understand what part of your system is dominant. So if your left side is open more, that's the Ida. That's the feminine side. That's the calming. That's the parasympathetic, which means that is a good time for meditation. If your right side is more dominant, that means Pingala is active. The heat, the sun, the sympathetic, the fight or flight is active, which means you're more ready to go. So it's better to do asana practice, or even better to do mental work that you have to focus on. So this is something that's called Swara yoga, and it's a whole science based on understanding what is happening within your sympathetic nervous system based on the flow of breath in your nostrils. Then you know what time of day you should do which activities. So it basically optimizes your potential. If you're trying to do meditation and your sympathetic is going, it's going to be very hard also because your mind will be very active. So ideally, what we want to do is get both nostrils flowing evenly, and that opens the central channel. So this is how we do this through our practice of pranayama. When the left nostril flows, Ida is active, the mind is dominant. When the right nostril flows, Pingala is active, and the pranas or the energies are dominant. So the flow of breath in the alternate nostrils at the same time indicates the state of balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And this is the best time to meditate. So how do we get both nostrils open? Okay, here's another trick for you. If one nostril is more open than the other, and you want to open the one that's more closed, okay, my right nostril is more open, my left nostril is a little more closed. How do I open my left nostril? Inhale right, exhale left. Inhale right, exhale left. And you do that for several minutes until the left side opens. And that will help to bring balance to the two. So you want to exhale through the side that's blocked. It's like you're pushing the air out through the blockage. And that's how you can start to bring balance, and that will help you go into meditation. Now here's another trick for those that have one nose that's clogged and they want to do alternate nostril breathing. Let's say I want to do this process of Nadi Shodhana, but I can't even breathe through my right nostril because it's so blocked. Take a cushion or a rolled up towel or a rolled up shirt and put it a few inches under the armpit, and there's a Nadi here on the left side of the body and on the right side. You do it on the opposite side that's blocked. If my right nostril is blocked, I put something under the left armpit, and the pressure on the Nadi that is connected to my right nostril will open it. So for those of you that are having problems with pranayama, alternate nostril breathing, because one nostril is blocked, put something with a little pressure that's thick enough to create a certain pressure on the opposite side. Right nostril is blocked, put the cushion under the left armpit. Yeah? Okay, these are little tricks to help you. So, now, if Ida is flowing and you are practicing meditation, like I said, you'll go to sleep. If Pingala is flowing and you're trying to meditate, you'll think too much. So when both nostrils are flowing, this is when Sushumna Nadi is flowing, and this is when meditation happens easily. And now you know the trick, okay? Just unblocking the side that's blocked, getting both sides evenly flowing, opens up the possibility for Sushumna Nadi to open, and this opens up the ability to go into meditation.
So Jason, are you saying that we're going through Ida and Pingala like throughout the day a few times, or is it one is more dominant for each person?
No, good question. So throughout the day it shifts. Every 90 minutes, like for 90 minutes, this side will be open, and then another 90 minutes, this side will be open, and then the next 90 minutes back. And it goes back and forth throughout the day, every 90 minutes, about 90 minutes. It depends on the person, on the day, etc. But generally.
They're both blocked.
It means you have a cold.
It's not like snot, but like sometimes you can't breathe. You know?
That means there's some sort of energetic blockage happening somewhere. And guess what? If you eat too much kapha food, kapha is that heavy food, yeah, that slows things down, and it forms more mucus. Mucus is that sticky stuff in the body that slows things down. So if you're eating a lot of kapha food, like cheese or dairy, milk products, they create a lot of that phlegm in the mouth and in the system. If you eat a lot of that, it actually gets harder to do pranayama because it's blocking. So we want to release the excess mucus, as it's said, through the Shatkarmas, through the Kriya purification practices. So making Sushumna Nadi flow is the most important process in yoga, which leads to Kundalini awakening. Okay? So what can you do to lead to Kundalini awakening? First of all, make sure both nostrils are open. And you can do what I just said, unblock the one that's blocked. Then you can start bringing energy into both sides through the alternate nostril breathing. Then you want to send it into the central channel. How do we send energy into the central channel? We can do Bhastrika. Lock it all in, and that sends it into the central channel. So these bandhas are the key to sending energy into the central channel. Did you understand that? The bandhas are the key to sending energy into the central channel. But first, you have to do these other steps. You got to purify through the purification techniques, and you got to get Ida Nadi and Pingala Nadi flowing evenly. Then you can start to work with Sushumna. And for some of this will take years, because we have so many toxins in our body. It took me years. Right? It didn't happen the first month I did yoga. It didn't happen the first few years I did yoga. I had been a very naughty boy for a very long time, and I put very many bad things into my body, and it took me a long time to get the residual effects out. Years and years of hardcore pranayama practice, bandhas, and after a few years, now I get to a place where I'm starting to feel the effects that these texts are talking about. I can feel the Kundalini, I can feel the chakras, etc. But I want to let you know it's not the immediate McDonald's gratification, okay? This isn't fast food yoga. This is the big natural picture of life moving slowly, naturally, and unfolding according to the rhythms of the universe, not according to your own ego demands. So please, if you feel discouraged any time in yoga because you're not as flexible as somebody else, or you can't do chaturanga as long as Kosta, or you can't do as much pranayama as the person next to you, it's a lifelong journey, okay? Day by day, step by step, you get to this place through consistent effort. That's the key. What is the key to evolution? According to this system? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. You have to practice for anything to happen. Okay? If you just sit there and think about it, not much is going to change. You got to do your practice. This is what makes all of this reality. Otherwise, it's just philosophy. Okay? Now, when the pranic energy is awakened through pranayama, it's circulated into what we could consider the unenlightened parts of our brain. Remember we said, at best, 30% of your brain is actually being used. What the heck's going on with the other 70%? It hasn't even been turned on. So pranayama is what lights up the other parts of your brain. That and Kundalini will do the final job, take you to the highest consciousness. So this inner light is illumined, and you are reborn into a new dimension of existence and a new area of experience. Look, I'm not an enlightened master, but I can guarantee that me, compared to 18 years ago, is a very different being. Now, you could say 18 years, that would probably be a different being for any human who went through an 18-year process of living. But the things that are happening in my life, the way that I feel about myself, and the way that I perceive the world around me is much different than it was 18 years ago. And the people that I grew up with that aren't doing yoga, that I go home to in New York City and the areas surrounding, we don't have much to talk about anymore because I can't relate to their perception of reality, and they certainly can't relate to mine. I went home throughout my 30s with hair down to here, a big beard, no shoes, and people said, "What happened, Jason?" Literally, you know. They still have a hard time understanding, but at age 44, when they're not doing so healthy and I come home all happy and energized, they start asking me, "What are you doing? You know, what's your secret?" And now, after 10 years of making fun of me, they're saying, "Okay, what's going on? I'd like for you to share some of that." So once you've decided to step into another dimension of consciousness, once you've made a decision that this is a priority in your life, then you have to get ready to sacrifice some of those things which are detrimental to the practice of pranayama and hatha yoga, like the things we've talked about. Okay, I'm not here to say you're a bad person if you're still doing anything that's not beneficial for you. We all have addictions, we all have habits, we all have limitations. But this is the process of starting to prioritize your life, and if this becomes the top priority, becoming the most amazing you that you were born to be, then we'll start to let go of the things that are keeping us from reaching that full potential. And it's not so hard, you know, like I was a cigarette smoker even for several years. I didn't force myself to stop smoking, but after a few months of pranayama, I'm like, well, this is just not helpful. I can do something much easier if I let go of this habit. So eventually I didn't force myself to become a vegetarian. It happened through the process of just doing yoga practice, and slowly I felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. So this system is not about suppression, it's not about repression. You're not trying to force yourself to be some sort of ideal yogi. Just do your practice, and transformation is guaranteed. But don't expect miracles, expect things to flow with the rhythm of nature. In nature, things move slowly, yet everything is accomplished. This is how we need to approach our yoga practice as well. So, remember, the practices of Hatha Yoga, Asana, and Pranayama are for the development of the quality of human consciousness, not just the mind or body. Philosophy is intellectual. Like I said, you can sit there and think about all these beautiful techniques all day long. They're not going to do anything unless you practice them, because you can never reach the point of evolution through your mind. You reach it as you transcend the mind. It's the mind that's the barrier. It's actually the obstacle. That monkey mind can be your greatest tool or your greatest enemy. Let's turn it into our greatest tool through these practices. Hatha Yoga helps you transcend the limitations of the intellect because you are working on prana and you're not worrying about the mind. You go right beyond this whole structure and just go straight to the energy. If preparation is adequate, there will be no need to learn meditation. If you get everything balanced, guess what? Meditation happens. You don't even have to do anything. If you are pure and balanced, you close your eyes, the thoughts aren't coming. You're in stillness, you're in peace, you're in bliss. So this is a reality for all of us. This is not something just for the guys and women who go to the mountains and caves or in the jungle. All of us have the capacity to do this. It all depends on you. Because once you do enough purification, I love this sentence, I pulled it out of this book. This is from the commentator. One fine morning while practicing pranayama, your mind will be lifted into a new realm of consciousness. And this does happen, okay? Now, one side note about this whole science, the science was created for purification, for a spiritual path. But what the yogis figured out is that it's also one of the most effective therapies on the planet. So this is why yoga therapy is a burgeoning and exploding science in the modern day, because it is so effective. So yoga therapy is to regain the health of the whole system, and you do this, or you can do this, by bringing health and balance into one system. This is a law that one system affects the entire organism. So if you bring one part of the system into balance, that's going to help affect the entire system. So if you can just do Nauli Kriya, Uddiyana Bandha, something to work with the abdominal cavity, and you purify and balance this part of your being, it will impact the rest of your being. So you don't have to worry on fixing everything. You know, I have a long laundry list of all the problems with myself. Just focus on guiding your energy into one direction, and that will impact things at a deeper level holistically. So if you're able to create health in one system of your body, as I just said, gradually your whole body begins to improve. The psychic and mental diseases humans are suffering are a result, very simple, of disharmony in the energetic system. So if we can balance the energy, then we can also alleviate a lot of these modern day illnesses like stress-related diseases and hypertension, heart disease, all of these things that relate to our high level of anxiety and stress in the modern world. So if you do your pranayama, alternate nostril breathing, do you feel calmer in the mind? I want you to understand, you don't have to do 2 hours of yoga every morning to benefit. You can do 5 minutes. If you do 5 minutes of pranayama, you feel better in 5 minutes. So don't worry that, oh, I don't have a time in my busy schedule. That is BS completely. You have 5 minutes to breathe. And especially, I'm getting ready to do a lecture. I'm sitting out there, and I took a little nap this afternoon for about 10 minutes, just closed my eyes and rested, and I wake up feeling a little groggy. So as I know I'm going to come give a lecture, I do 3 rounds of Nadi Shodhana, and I get more clarity. You don't have to step on a mat to do yoga. You can do it in your office. If you had a long day and you got a headache, do a couple rounds and you feel better. Yoga is for any time of the day, anywhere, okay? And you can always bring your mind in and find the rhythm of your breath to calm down. So this is something that we start to grasp as an understanding that I can heal myself at any moment with the technique from yoga. I can bring balance, or I can make myself feel better at any time just by using a technique for a few minutes. Now, this is also something that as teachers, you can start to share with your students, your friends, and your family. Okay, you have a headache, let's do this. 5 minutes later, do you feel better? Yes. Oh my God, I haven't lost this headache in 2 days. Simply sharing some of these therapeutic aspects of yoga can make a big impact on the quality of life of your students, friends, and family. So you don't have to teach a yoga class to be a yoga teacher. You can share this information with anybody in your life, and you're going to start to help them feel better. This is an important thing to remember. Maybe some of you will never step on the mat again as a teacher, but you're all yogis now. Okay? You all understand the science. You now all have the ability to help others with the science. Okay? Asanas and pranayama are the first steps in gaining control over the total structure of the brain and mind, which are the controlling system that allows you to direct every aspect of your life. Okay? So this is it. It's very direct science. Inside every sick person, and this also comes out of this commentary, there is a spiritual being. And whether we talk about it or not, a lot of the illnesses or stress comes from a lack of connection to higher meaning in our lives. And so this feeling that we don't have depth or fulfillment often comes from what we could call spiritual crisis, or this feeling that we don't understand why we're here, the meaning of our lives, what's our purpose. Well, by going into a spiritual path and starting to look within to find your answers, this is guiding you back to wholeness. Because according to these teachings, I'm not here to convince you, you know, but we are spiritual beings in a body. We have a body, but we are a spiritual being experiencing life through the body. It's not that we are a physical body and have some sort of spiritual aspect to us. We are the soul that is continuing through these journeys time after time. So when a person comes to you for help, of course you can teach them how to fix their physical problems. But you, as a teacher who knows the value of the depth of the science, can also, depending on their openness, plant seeds that help them to go deeper into greater understanding of their own being. So you can help them with the physical, but don't stop there. Take them further into the spiritual domain of life. And again, you don't even have to say the word spiritual. You don't have to talk about Shiva and Shakti and Prakriti and Purusha, because most people will run out the door because it's a totally foreign language and you're in a cult and you're trying to convert me and I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. So what you can do is talk about reducing headaches. You can talk about having better sleep. You can talk about being more effective and productive at work. You can talk about how you can deepen your intimacy with your family and friends and relationships. So communicate with people, teach them the yoga science in the language that fits them, not in your language. I've said this before, but this is a really important point, because I made the mistake when I was a beginner. Oh man, you got to hear all about Shiva and Shakti, and their eyes crossed and said, I don't know who this hippie is, but I'm out of here. Okay, so to improve the mental health and personality and the personality and psychology must change, okay? This is the transformation that happens. You don't have to spend millions of dollars on a couch talking to a psychologist who's napping behind you, pretending to take notes. You can literally do the process yourself, which means you are now empowered to take charge of your life. That's all we ask for, is to be in control of our own destiny. This is the science of controlling your destiny, okay? Yoga Sutras, very good science, very effective, and we now in this modern day, we have access to all the teachings. What are we doing with them? We are integrating them into the next stage of the process of the science of evolution. Yoga is a continually awake, alive, and transforming science. It's not something that was written 6,000 years ago or even 500 years ago, and that's it. As we evolve, the yoga science evolves with us. Now, a very easy, short representation of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika can be found at this website, but it's also has some language in there that might be challenging to understand, but it's very quick, so you can get an overview of the whole Hatha Yoga Pradipika in a few minutes by checking out the information on this page. So, any questions? Yeah?
You're doing yoga therapy now.
Yes.
Right? You look at another service that you provide to people.
Sure.
Most of your customers, most of your clients come in with physical issues, or is it more emotional?
Actually, surprisingly, most of the clients that I see have mental and emotional issues. And they have gotten to a place where a lot of them have tried to take medicine, you know, like mood-altering medicine to try to deal with their mental and emotional problems. And they realized that that was making them sicker. And they start reaching out for holistic ways. I've been to Dubai. I've been invited to go teach in Dubai a few times, and I went there as a yoga therapist. And whether you know anything about Dubai or not, it's a crazy materialistic society, high stress, high achieving, high pressure. And so I had people coming to me because they heard that there was a wellness center. And they didn't know about me, but they heard there's a wellness center. So they went there and they start looking for ways to find wellness. And what do? Is they see that there's a yoga therapist. So people come to me and they've never done yoga in their life. They've never done pranayama in their life, and that's the first thing I teach them is pranayama. And after a half hour of breathing different ways, they're hooked already. So that's all we need to share, really. If you can share some very basic pranayama techniques with people that are suffering with mental and emotional challenges, you can transform their lives in a few minutes. That's the power. So it's a great fulfillment to see someone feel better, and you were able to help them with that. You know, that's what lifts me up more than anything, is being in service of others. And as we said yesterday, through Karma Yoga, it's one of the easiest paths to purification of the ego. It's one of the easiest paths to enlightenment. So serving others through yoga is now something you all have the capacity to do, because you can offer these techniques to anybody at any time. Shannon.
What would you say from your experience is the best pranayama as an introduction to somebody suffering headaches?
What I always start with first to teach somebody how to breathe is full yogic breath. They got to learn how to breathe into the belly. Most people have stress, so they're only up here. And they're never getting the energy they need. So first teach them full belly breathing, then include the thoracic, the chest, and then you break it down. First 1, 2, 3, then all 3 together. Then you can go into the other techniques. We got to teach them to breathe first. And as soon as they start breathing deeply, a few breaths, you feel better. That's why they say when you're stressed, what do? Take 10 deep breaths. It's pranayama. Calms everything down. Good. I saw another hand. Yes, Kaylee.
So we talk about how important the spine is. So
Yep.
for somebody that's been in a car accident and has hurt their spine, or maybe somebody that's paralyzed, like are they still able to have the same benefits? That
Absolutely, absolutely. Because guess what? When you injure the physical body, you do not damage the energy body. The matrix stays there. That's why people who lose a limb still have ghost sensations, because they still have an energetic body there, and the sensations are coming from the prana body. And therefore, when someone breaks their spine, God forbid, you can have them do visualization and pranayama through the spine, and it will start to bring healing and energy into that central channel, but also manifesting health at the physical level as well. Maybe it won't fix broken bones, but it will keep the energy flowing, and that will provide health. Okay? Yes, Daniela.
For your question, I can share my experience. Before coming here, I was a little bit afraid because I have an injury on my shoulder, and now it's so much better. I feel I'm stronger. Yeah, there are some poses that maybe can hurt a little bit, but in my day by day, it doesn't hurt anymore. So I think it actually is.
The more prana you pump into your system with pranayama, the stronger you get. The more resilient you get, the stronger your immune system is. So the more that you breathe, it's not just about physical health, it's about resiliency. It's about the ability to fight off disease. So pranayama is also a preventative medicine, and it helps us to stay strong, which will help us to avoid falling into those things that attack us when we're weak, the illnesses and the disease, the germs, etc. Yeah.
How long is the yoga therapy teaching?
Well, now with the Yoga Alliance has made some new guidelines, and there was a lot of people doing a weekend yoga therapy course and then professing to be a yoga therapist, and they really have a very limited information. And there were people actually getting some negative effects from these untrained teachers. They were trying to do great, but they weren't ready for the business. And you know how challenging it is to know about the physical body. It's a lifelong study. So now what I did was a 3-month yoga therapy course, but what you can do is, that's just the first step. To become a yoga therapist, which I'm not a yoga therapist by the Yoga Alliance qualifications, you need to do many, many hours. Like, I'm not sure, I'd have to look at the website again, but I think 1,000 hours of practical work before you can actually start to become certified. So they've brought the attention to the fact that this needs to be a deeper understanding so that there's no problems being caused. Okay?
What do you do in yoga therapy more than pranayama?
So yoga therapy, you learn how to address the physical body, of course, but you also very much, at least in the course I did, was there a big emphasis on Ayurveda, on learning how to balance the doshas. Because once you bring balance to the doshas, that brings the balance to the whole system. It's by balancing the energy. Remember, doshas are a form of energy. So as you balance the doshas through the yoga practices, asana, pranayama, mudra, diet, herbs, etc., then this is one of the most effective sciences to go sister science of yoga, and they work together. So a lot of our yoga therapy, what we did was we'd have a student come in or a client come in, and this was neat actually. We had 2 adjoining rooms, and next door we had a video camera, and in the other room we had the ability to see what was happening in the other room through the video camera. So we watched on screen, all of the students watched the teacher of our yoga therapy course and watch one other student with a client. So the new student, the yoga therapy trainee, is in there and they're asking questions. And you start asking questions to find out what is going on with their doshas. Same thing as you ask those questions in the self-test about how to find your dosha. So you start asking a lot of questions to find out what is going on in their body, emotions, energy, and mind. And we are on the other side watching this. So after you go through this question, and the questionnaire takes about an hour, literally a long time, then the client goes away and comes back a few days later, and the teacher and the student have designed a program for the particular client based on their needs. So we give them practices, dietary recommendations, meditation, etc., pranayama. And then the student or the client goes off, does the practice with the teacher, and then they do it a few more times alone. And then next week they come back, and once again they sit in the room and they go and they talk about their experience. So what we're doing is a process of analyzing what the client needs, creating a program for them, guiding them through the program, then allowing them to come back and ask questions about how the program is going and if they need any clarification.
It touches upon all the same aspects of yoga actually.
That this is.
Yeah.
No. So in order to do a yoga therapy course, most yoga therapy training centers require you to have already done a 200-hour yoga training, so you have this foundation.
Not talking about the training, but just the
Information.
therapy itself.
So basically, in a way, yes, but deeper into how to heal.
Okay.
So this, we focus on energy, we focus on consciousness. I haven't really talked much about how to heal your liver or work with migraine headaches, but that's what we're going into. Now it's as a therapy rather than as a spiritual path. Okay? Long-winded answer to give you that.
I was
Yeah.
wondering, how do you know you are doing the right pranayama because of a headache or pain in your stomach or what else?
Well, this is a good question. How do you know which the right pranayama is? Well, think about the effects.
Yeah.
If I'm doing and pumping a bunch of energy up here and I already have a headache,
Yeah, that's
that could make it worse. Has anybody had a headache, tried pranayama, and it made it worse? This is possible if you do the wrong pranayama. So you're always safe for calming and balancing with this. Always. Full yogic breath.
so begin.
Always safe with this. So start with the full yogic breath, move to the alternate nostril breathing, and the last one that I would recommend for people with other issues is the humming bee breath. So soothing, so calming. So basically the ones that are firing you up, like Kapalabhati, they're creating more heat, that can create more of an agitation. So we want to have soothing and cooling breathing practices at that time. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have time? Sure, let's do it. I had said to Alethea that I'm going to guide you through one more eye-gazing experience. So we're going to do this together in a slightly different way than she has done it. And this way you get to see another perspective of how to do these practices. So what I'd like to share with you is just a little bit of understanding about the practice of eye-gazing. In the tantric science, this is more than just looking into someone's eyes. As always, there's more depth to all of these techniques. So what we're actually doing in the process of eye-gazing is what's called, and I'll write it down for you. It's called Transfiguration. Transfiguration means literally, trans is going across or going beyond, like a transatlantic flight. You're going over the Atlantic, you're crossing, you're going beyond. Transfiguration is going beyond the figure that you normally perceive. So when we look into someone's eyes, we have the ability to see more than just the physical body. The process of transfiguration, according to Tantra, is literally a process and a practice, a technique for seeing the divine in the other, for seeing God in the person whose eyes you're looking into. What do we call the eyes? The windows to the soul. And that's not even a yogic expression. But this truth is known throughout the world, that on the other side of the eyes is the consciousness that's looking out and experiencing this life. So as we go into transfiguration, we try to see beyond the mask, right? We all wear masks, many masks, and we show those masks to the world based on what we feel comfortable allowing them to see. So what we want to do in this process is to see beyond the mask, to see the purity, to see the essence of the other, to see the spark, the divine within the other. And in that same process, if you're doing this with someone else, you are letting down your masks, which is often the hardest thing to do. So it's a process of becoming very open and very vulnerable. And if you've done this, which you have, you've already had this experience because you did it with one person for several minutes, yes? Okay. So in our practice today, we're going to do it with 5 different people. And each one won't be so long. But what you're going to have is a unique experience with each person. Because every person that you gaze into their eyes, that's a different jiva, a different individual soul, so you will feel and experience something unique to that individual. And I want you to have this opportunity to connect at a deeper level. And as I heard Alethea say, this isn't just something you can do in yoga. This is something that as you start to let your mask down, as you start to connect with someone at a deeper level, this creates a bond, this creates a connection. And this is very powerful to do with friends, family, parents, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, children. Because we all wear the mask in that role that we play with each other person in our life. And allowing yourself to be completely vulnerable and surrender the ego is one of the main goals of yoga. So this transfiguration is a very powerful process. It's not just about Can I see the color of their eyes? Can I see some changes? And as I was talking about one day with Yuri, if you do this long enough, as you stare into the eye of the other, you may experience the face going into different shapes, morphing into different faces. And this just depends. It doesn't happen for everybody. But for some people, if you look at someone's eyes long enough, you can start to see the face go into the face of a man or a woman, young or old. Very many things can happen. And the first time I saw it, it literally scared me. Because am I hallucinating? What's going on here? Is this person changing, or is it all in my mind? And what they say is that as you gaze into the eye of the other long enough, if you're pure enough, then you can start to see the faces of the past lives. So this is something that can be verified scientifically. And I'm not saying you have to believe it, but I have done this process. And if you hold that gaze long enough, you may start to see some changes in the face. Nothing to worry about, nothing bad has happened. It's not a problem. It's actually an opening of your consciousness to see something beyond just the present physical reality, which you're usually tuning in.